you tonight. I think that sounds delicious.
Yeah, we should.
Hey Ian, did I send you the video for the first 3 Linux commands yet?
Yes.
The email.
I believe you did. And I have access to your account now, so
we're live.
Well, I actually edited those. Those are the edited final ones. The ones that I've been emailing you, I went through and I added them.
Oh, did you? Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so they're like
Linux commands.
I was busy.
That just sounds like historical document.
The first 3, yeah.
Yeah, you got to do that, man. Are we live? Oh, we are live.
We are live. We're doing it
live. Shop with the live folks.
I like that move. Just like cut me right out.
Nobody show their Steam profiles. Okay, everyone keep them secret now.
Is it? What are you afraid that people are going to see your profile and then just start beating you at games?
No,
that's not the reason, but yeah, that too.
They're gonna judge him for all the weird games that he owns, like Anime Girl Does Your Taxes. That's
bought that game legitimately.
There is some weird games on Steam. I didn't realize.
There's actually like a dating sim where the Anime Girl Does Your Taxes.
That would be a definite plus in the dating sim, right? Like
I mean, you have two. We have one day. Tomorrow's the tax deadline, right? So,
California, we got until October. Because they declared a national emergency or something.
Yeah, that's for safety.
A national emergency for just being
or a federal
California?
emergency. I don't. Yeah, for being they flood.
They're like, we're California. We're the hardest to manage state. We're just gonna give everyone 5 extra.
Oh, Florida has entered the chat.
Okay, you don't have earthquakes.
Hey, not
you don't have earthquakes. You also don't have wildfires.
We're the hardest to manage, not have the craziest people. All right.
So what makes you so hard to manage then?
I mean, the second you cross the border, you get cancer. So there's that.
Which
everything has
in
cancer.
California. Yeah, you've seen the warnings.
Now I've just got like the Black Crowes hard to handle in my head. Hey, little thing, let me light your candle because I'm emotional.
Oh, that's a good song.
Hard to handle, mess
good
around.
album.
Karaoke's the next podcast, John. You came early.
Yeah,
this is all karaoke.
But I've Zoom now to do music as well.
That's true. Yeah, they've got the better audio now for the.
I don't know how well it works. Like
it doesn't work that well. I've tried.
No.
I tried it.
No.
Yeah, 50
with my new mic.
We just lost Cameron and DC.
Yeah.
Oh no,
we did.
No, I
they're
thought I heard
here,
them.
but
they're
their
here.
camera
we're here.
is not working.
They're hiding.
Their voice is here.
I forgot you did.
We're
experiencing technical difficulties.
Imagine if you were in the audience and you could just join the audio show but not be on video. That's
just
basically the situation.
Grenades with random gibberish into.
I'd rather it almost be the opposite, but I'm not sure. Like if audio or what would you rather? All audio or all video? Like
definitely all audio. It's like the radio experience. It's like caller 7. What are your thoughts?
A completely different camera.
That would be pretty cool if we could have a caller.
Oh, they're on mirroring, I think.
Is it a bong awesome. With the US? What?
No, it's now I can't unsee it. Thank you.
Yep. I'm sorry. Okay, is it a beaker?
It's
beaker or bong?
Beaker.
That's what I thought it was.
Why not both?
Cameron smiles like. They don't know.
Their lawyer has advised them not to answer.
I thought it was an Xbox controller.
It's a vase, all right? I told my mom it was a vase.
What's
all right. Ryan, kick out the crooked finger. Let's get going.
Okay. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Black Hills Information Security, talking about news. We're going to be talking about all kinds of things that are not ransomware today, which I think is awesome. We're going to be talking about, did Israel's power system or water systems get hacked? We're going to talk about threat intel agencies and how apparently they're all incompetent because someone leaked something on Discord. We're going to be talking about whether or not it's okay to plug in USB devices. We're going to talk about the 3CX attack. We're going to be talking about, what is this, good guy, God views with data that the government can buy. And we're going to talk about the USB that came up twice. I am joined today by Ryan, who not only looks good, not only sounds fantastic, but makes us look good and sound fantastic as well. And just overall fantastic. We got Wade joining us from the 5th largest world economy, if it was its own. We have Florida man who took it personally when Wade said that California had crazy people, and he had to come in as well.
That's true.
We got Please Explain. I don't know where Please Explain came from. That's a name there.
Just Google me.
Just
It's
Google
fine.
me, man.
Speaking of being overwhelmed, we have Ian as another Florida man joining us today. And we have a very, very special group of people that are joining the DC 801 group. Thank you very much for joining us, folks. So let's jump right into it. Let's get into the most controversial thing that we can cover today. Are public USB chargers safe and high?
Totally
So
safe.
this, we never talked about the original article, but the original article was the FBI put out a warning that said,
PSA.
don't charge your phone in public, but do give it to us at the airport check-in.
We have
Yeah.
special cubbies.
There we go.
Well, they
So
don't
this
want
is kind of
somebody
like
else's
it's like a
malware.
clap back. This is like a response to that original
Comes in,
thing.
comes in.
So what is
The-
it? Why are
the
they
actual
saying it's a
Slate-
good idea? Because
the
it
actual
seems like
Slate
a bad
article-
idea.
The actual Slate article just says like, yeah, they say it's bad, but not really. Like they just completely kind of rip it apart. Like they just posted it just to post stuff, you know. The FBI tells us to do stuff every now and then.
So it's like they're just trying to get people to click on the article like we are and then read it like we are?
Yeah, pretty much, exactly.
Yes.
So we all got
This
scammed.
may be AI written as well. No, I'm joking. There's
But let's talk about like the technical underpinnings of this garbage. So whenever you're looking at direct memory access, according to the DMA standards, and a lot of this was in a tool called, what the hell was it? Inception, which was a FireWire tool where you can connect two computers via FireWire to each other. And according to the DMA standards, any FireWire device that you plug in will have unrestricted, unfettered, complete God control of the lower 4 gigs of memory on a computer system. So there's been lots and lots and
Good
lots
times.
of question and debate as to whether or not that level of DMA access actually still applies to USB 3.0, Thunderbolt standards, Lightning standards, all of those other standards. And the thing that sucks is a lot of people, because they've heard of like Inception style attacks, of DMA level attacks, they automatically assume that that's the way it is for absolutely everything. And I just came into the show right after teaching, so I haven't had a chance to research it. I don't think that USB 3.0 follows the DMA standards for unrestricted access to lower 4 gigs on operating systems.
No, it does not. They're worried about juice jacking, which sounds like something I would hear at a gym, but
Yeah.
apparently is actually installing malware. Like I'm assuming you like plug your phone and it's like, to charge, please install this super legitimate application.
So hold on.
they could have come out with such a cooler name.
So there's only
Just-
two. There's only two phones you can get. You can get the Android or an iOS phone. I know for a fact the current iOS. If you
Whoa.
Oh,
We have
Is it
lots of
just me?
thoughts on this article.
No,
over
no, I
here.
thought it was me too. It's definitely the
maybe it
Florida
is
man.
me.
Look at
Ralph, your internet, your 5 gigabit internet is not fast enough for research.
How did that happen?
she's sending uncompressed video.
So, I mean, the honest truth is with this, with modern processors, it's really not a concern. Like, you're not going to get access to memory on any through a USB. The only concern you really have is Thunderbolt. And since Thunderbolt 1 is no longer a thing, with Thunderbolt 2 and Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt 4, it's not a problem. It's not really something I would be concerned too much about. I mean, other than you have the attack of a keyboard, right? You can emulate a keyboard. That can be kind of
Right.
scary.
No, that one makes sense, but you would notice
On a phone, I mean,
on your phone.
I think the argument against this is it's alert fatigue. It's like the public needs to be worried about every possible attack. No actual security people are backing this up. No one's like, yeah, they're super right. I totally got hacked from a public cell phone charger. Like, no, there's just so much information out there for the FBI to be like, this is what you should care about, grandma. Like, it's just not important. It's just not that big of a deal.
Well, the one time I grabbed that cable at DEF CON and just plugged it in, some weird stuff happened on my phone. But how often is that? No.
I do like how they're just like the tweet from the FBI literally just says attackers have figured out ways. It doesn't give any more information than that. It's just like the attackers have figured out things. Be scared.
With
Like, it doesn't. It
Writing
doesn't.
like test reports like that.
with iOS though, it's gonna prompt you to accept that device before you can do anything beyond just charging your iPhone, right? So
No, you don't understand. Attackers have figured out things.
they're gonna waste a 0 day on you, like just some random person in the freaking. Okay, cool. Yeah, all right, I'm in. I got
All
it. I
right.
shouldn't do that.
So after some very, very quick Googling, which now makes me an absolute expert in all things, it doesn't look like the DMA attacks directly are carried over. So that's
No.
the one thing about it. However, there were Thunderbolt style attacks
Yeah,
that you
Thunderbolt
could
can do.
utilize to actually leverage exploits and vulnerabilities in the design of Intel's chipsets, where you could plug in a device and exploit that Thunderbolt chipset. The last one was June 24th, 2021. The name of the tool is ThunderSpy is the name of the tool. So it looks to me like this type of attack isn't like a forever day, like the way a standard is written. It's more in line with using it to deliver an exploit and a payload to a system. And like, I think somebody had already joked about it and said it, like the attackers aren't like, you know what we need to do? I know we just spent millions of dollars on this 0 day. We need to put it in this public charging station at Washington Dulles. It's not how that's
You're not muted.
right. So
For an OMG cable, that's attacking the device on the other end, right? Like most of the time. You're not like it's designed to look like an iPhone charger.
Yes,
so
it's not designed to attack iPhones.
Right. It's not OMG cable. Like I think this is what people that watch Mr. Robot think this device does, but it's not like you just buy it and you instantly have root access to anything you plug it into. That's not how it works.
That's how I root my iPhone. It's a $100 cable.
It's literally just
It works
basically a
every time.
rubber ducky that looks like a cable. Is basically what it is. It does some cool things. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying
it does
it's
more than a
useless.
rubber ducky, but you're right. It's like the unified ring of all the awesome things that come out from Hack 5. So
Here's
Yeah,
another
I just
interesting
I don't
thing
know.
to think about. You imagine you can make USB cables that have an Ethernet device on the other end, right? So they plug in their cell phone, and all of a sudden, instead of using the Wi-Fi or the cell phone data that they're used to, they're all of a sudden connected to the Ethernet device that's on the other side of that cable. Both iOS and Android will just immediately start using that Ethernet device that's instantly plugged in. And so you can do things like, try and figure out what type of DHCP leases it's listing for, get MAC addresses, man in the middle,
Yeah.
right? So
Man in
that's
the middle,
other
but
thing
with
that I haven't
DNS
even
and
talked about
TLS
much.
and all that stuff now being encrypted, it's so like I don't know. Yeah, I mean it's an interesting attack. I will say that Alex Minster in the chat had an interesting take on it, which is probably the correct take, which is the FBI is just giving it press now so they can call back to it in 2 months when they have to go public with some corporation that fell for this, right? Like,
Good job,
this is like them just paving the way. Like I will say, they probably see more than we do. They probably have companies calling them on the daily, being like, "We got hacked, help." So maybe there's some like insight here. Maybe there's a new 0 day or something. Who knows?
But I think that we're back to 0 day, right? Like I don't know of
Yeah.
any current technology that's just COTS that you can just download and you can do these types of attacks willy-nilly against mobile devices. Like we said, if you're looking at the Inception style attacks, those have been pretty much mitigated by most major operating systems. Thunderbolt style attacks were actually delivering 0 day exploits to systems. NSA Cottonmouth, I think is what it was. That actually led into development of the OMG cables from Hack 5. But like something that's so widespread that's like you have to stop using these things. I think it's gonna be a 0 day. It's gonna be something that isn't in the industry that we haven't seen
Yeah.
quite yet, which I get excited about because it'd be really cool if there was an FBI briefing and they're like, oh, the DMA attacks are back on the table and you can access all the memory of the device and here's how you do it. And
Right.
someone got really excited in a meeting. They're like, oh, quick to the FBI Twitter account. Don't ever plug in things. I'm hoping that's what it is. I get really disappointed now when it's just a 0 day. It's like, it's a delivery mechanism. For
Yeah, I will say, John, you're talking about protecting society's most vulnerable people, which are people that can't bring phone chargers with them when they travel. How? How can you be that short-sighted? You're like, I'm going to be gone for 3 days. I shouldn't need to charge my phone or anything.
All right, I have the answer. I have the answer to this. When you just have the cable, right, and you're in a foreign country and it has the USB plug-in, but you don't have the proper wall plug-in.
That's on you. It's not that hard.
There you go. Like
Yeah.
you don't have the foreign plug-in to plug into the actual thing, but you have USB.
But,
Like,
that would be
there's
my
also
only thing.
batteries. There's solar. I mean, bring a
Yes,
solar panel and put it
but
out in the airport. at
When
this
you're
point.
traveling international and you're at like an airport for like a day or whatever,
You just have to
no,
download the
stuff.
fast charge app as Whisper.
Yeah, I would guess that's really how this is happening. Is that it's like kind of like scammy, fraudy. It's like, hey, download this app to have your phone charge 5% faster or whatever, and it's just like one of those VPN apps that like
And
all
get more
your
memory.
yeah.
But every time I walk by those charging stations at the airport and I see some poor person sitting there plugged in, like poor unfortunate souls from the Little Mermaid start spooling up in my head. These poor unfortunate souls. And it's just like, what happened? Like, how far down did you fall for rock bottom to get to the point where you're like, I got to use that. And here's my credit card.
Here's my credit card.
Right? Yeah,
Yes.
I know.
Dimmer's
Yeah, one
green.
person, Domox in the chat says insert charging condoms. This actually is a thing.
Yeah.
No, I'm
No,
You can
it's
get
like-
like it only passes
There it
through a
is.
5-volt
Yeah.
charging connection. Yeah.
We gave them away at B-side San Diego. And I was
Yeah.
like, will people actually have these? And
if you're gonna bring a condom, you're also bringing a charger. Come on.
I'm put up on the screen though, Ryan. 'Cause, I mean, literally,
How dare you?
this one up here.
It's
on the
focusing
screen
on your
is
hand,
something
back it up
called
again.
Quarter Pow. There we go. But there
There
we
we
go.
go.
Now we got that. So notice they've got a cutout there.
So you can
Two
see the
middle
pins, are missing. right?
That's the core piece of it. But it also has a chipset on it that basically works as a man in the middle to say, hey, the thing connected to this can support, higher power charging. So the cheaper ones will actually go through and just all they do is cut the data line. But then what happens is you get like the trickle charging for whatever's safe. If you get one of these in the middle, something like this, it will from this, from the USB side, it will go through and say, no, this one's capable of, higher level charging, and then take whatever power that's there. It's almost, more like a state-based power firewall, if you will. But yeah, that would be my thing. Like if this is something that really concerns you, right, and you think that you are a target of it, that device is $5, and it will
Yeah.
work with anything.
you're gonna buy a power bank that's like half
okay.
a pound and never charge anywhere ever again. It's what
The
I
other
would do.
thing, okay, the other thing that I'd like to remind everyone is that you already have a power bank, probably. It's called your laptop. It's not like your 60 watt-hour laptop and your battery in your laptop can't charge your phone like 18 times. Like
That's
I don't know.
even more important that
Once
stays
again,
on, all right?
poor unfortunate souls.
Yeah.
So, let's move on. Should we go to Israel? Should we talk about irrigation water controllers
Israel.
being hacked?
I love things being hacked. That's why I come to the show.
So one of the things I love about the show recently is we haven't had like lots of ransomware stories, which I think is great. So the Jordan Valley water controllers. So I'm guessing that water is kind of a big deal in Israel, and a bunch of farmers missed their scheduled irrigation times. And then if you actually went to the water irrigation controllers, they basically were displaying you have been hacked, down with Israel, right? And it's definitely, of course, a hacktivist type thing that's going on. But do you ever feel like we have this one, and then I think there's another one about Florida, the water plants down in Florida.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like everyone knows that there's going to be a wide scale attack against like SCADA ICS systems, and every reporter wants to be first to like report that story? Like, this is the one. This is it. They find like this is the one. Oldsmar, Florida, the water treatment plant. We actually talked about this one, right?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but this is the opposite of what you think. They're saying that maybe it just wasn't.
Didn't happen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it didn't
it
happen.
happen. But what I'm getting at is it seems like everyone is just waiting with bated breath, waiting for these SCADA ICS, power grid, water systems, something, sewage systems to get hacked. So it's like a massive story. And I wonder how much of that is driven by, like, if you walk around, I'm not looking forward to going to RSA, just for the record, but I'm going to be at RSA to do backdoors and breaches at the Technology Innovation Center. So if you want to come hang out with us, Ian and I will be there with Jason.
Mhm.
And there's so many vendors out there that are selling security products for OT. And I keep thinking that all of these people that are investing millions of dollars into this are just praying for some news story somewhere of some OT technology getting hacked So it starts raining dollar bills down on their products.
There's two ways to look at it. One is that it happens all the time and no company knows where their IoT assets are, so they don't notice.
That's probably
the other way to look at it is it's just not that common because there's oftentimes physical limitations or other things that prevent, safe set points or whatever. But yeah. So in this case, what did they end up fixing it? Did they just have to manually override? Like what actually happened?
They basically had to just bring it back up and then put in additional security measures to protect it again as well.
There was that story a while
we're
back.
overlooking here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all these water threats can be completely mitigated if we just start, instead of using water, change the supply over to Gatorade. Especially,
Yeah.
It's what plants
That's how I
crave.
water my lawn.
especially for the plants.
It's what plants crave.
It is. It is. It's a fact.
A little more seriously, though, I was listening to the Telegraph's Ukraine war report the other day, and they were mentioning pointedly that one of the pieces we're finding out of this particular war is that, hey, actually cyber attacks against infrastructure aren't as big of a deal as we thought. Like, yeah, they shut down Kiev's power grid for several hours in 2014, and yeah, we've been able to target and hack railroads and shut those down for a day or two at a time. But compared to the big apparatus that is a nation state, it's actually okay. We'll
I would
almost
almost.
there.
I would disagree with that.
I
would
want to
disagree
push
with that because
you go first, Wade. I'm going to push gently back on it as well.
Yeah, because one thing, it's the Ukraine, right? Ukraine has already been attacked, so they're already hardened. First off, they already understood what was going to happen.
But what country does that not apply to?
Well, so yeah,
but Ukraine, more than anyone else in the world, has had these gnarly cyber attacks from Russia. So they understood what was going to happen and already had prepared for that. And another thing, I would also say they're not as widely as connected as, say, the U.S. and also just how big they are. They're not that huge as if you were to attack a widespread American network as you would just the tiny Ukraine.
Let's take the case in point. What was the upshot of the attack on the Israeli water structure?
Nothing.
Are they still out of water, or did they get water back?
That one definitely looks like hacktivism, right?
Right, but are they still shut down? Are people desiccating, or did they get water up and running pretty quickly?
They did get water up and running, but I want to push back on your theory, and I hate to tell you this, but you're wrong. And I'm going to explain why, and I'm going to try to do this gently. Whenever you're attacking, whenever you have hot nation state on nation state action, okay, you do not want to bring down the power grid. You do not want to bring down comms, because if you bring down the power grid, if you bring down comms, you're bringing down your number one intelligence source. So if you go back and you look at the Iraqi wars, both of them, more the second one, part 2, than part 1. A tremendous amount of power actually stayed up through Iraq and in Baghdad, and the communication lines stayed up and were running through Baghdad through a number of the bombings, through a number of the different attacks that were going on. The reason why those things stayed up is because the United States was completely in their communications network. We were able to see where everyone was. We were able to see where Saddam was. We were able to see where his sons were. We were able to see who they were communicating with. We were able to watch technological focal points move from one place to another. And we were using that as an intelligence gathering mechanism. So just because you don't necessarily see a lot of these attacks against power grids in modern warfare doesn't mean it's not valuable. It is incredibly valuable. It just means if you shut it down, you're losing a tremendous intelligence resource in shutting that down. Does that make sense?
You have other pieces of infrastructure. What about oil refineries, gas pipelines, water purification plants? There's more than just power grid. And what we're seeing is that those attacks aren't happening because when they do happen, they're not that effective.
And the other reason why you're not seeing them happen,
were shut down and then fixed.
And the other reason why you're not seeing them happen, being someone who was on the side of nation states doing this type of thing, is you don't want to destroy the infrastructure that you're going to be taking over. That is incredibly expensive. So if you're actually planning on taking over specific land and you're planning on taking over real estate, you don't want to go and blow up all the oil and gas pipelines. You don't want to go and blow up all the water treatment plants, because as soon as you actually do achieve your specific tactical goals, you then have to pay to put those things back together. Does that make sense?
It would if Ukraine was the conquering force, for sure.
Of what?
I think I do sort of agree that there's not usually heavy consequences for IoT attacks, but as someone in the chat mentioned, you do have to sort of adjust the needle of, well, what would move the needle then? Because if it's not a tank driving through your front lawn, it's probably not that big of a deal. Your data has been breached 50 times. We care about this, but it's not like it's going to impact your heart's going to keep beating. I guess it's it kind of. It's reductionist logic. It's basically saying well, this doesn't matter. All that matters is tactical nukes. It's well, what if we're looking at cybersecurity?
It escalates to that point, right?
Yeah, it's you can't just say well, because no one died, it doesn't matter. Well, that's all of cybersecurity. I've never published a pen test report that says high severity finding, death possible. That's never been a thing. So you do have to kind of move the needle to put it relative to other stuff.
So yeah, and that's one of the things. Whenever you're talking about that escalation, even with tanks, it's easy to say, have you seen the people in Ukraine? The Russians are just rolling their tanks down the interstates, and then you see people on bicycles biking right by, or little cars driving by. Proves they don't care about tanks.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things that it's a lot more complicated and nuanced than saying cyber doesn't matter as much as tactical or vice versa, because they're all part of the exact same thing.
I think IoT attacks specifically are overhyped, though. I will agree with the general level. People act like it's this cyber doomsday and all this big thing, but really it's just another piece of cyber. Yes, you getting your internet shut off at your company is bad. You getting your water cut off, also bad, but not instant death. Not the same.
I think it's the fear of not having power for 48 hours, right?
Well,
dude, move to Texas. It happens every year.
And looked exactly what happened to Texas, people dying, right? So I think that's where it stems, at least for me, is that fear that if power goes completely out and the system goes down some way, that if you're in a large metropolitan area, how much does it take to fall into complete chaos?
Well, I guess, but power goes out and people survive. Yes, people die, but people also die all the time just from coconuts or driving pick your thing.
As Corey's trying to say, the only thing that matters is tactical nukes.
That's all I'm saying. Right? If it's not a news article that there's a tactical nuke in my mailbox, I don't want to read it.
Hey.
Yeah.
All right. Nuclear Command and Control gets hacked. Their ICS. Now what?
I'm out. I'm going home.
No, I live under a mountain. It's fine. I live at John's house.
We're good. I live in South Dakota. There's no nukes pointed at Ellsworth Air Force Base or anything.
I live in between three separate separate bases. I'm gone. I'll see.
This gets into. I think that is a valid thought exercise, right? Where you're saying, okay, if power grid goes down, how long before things start unraveling? Well, I think the time of the year matters quite a bit, right? If you looked at Texas, if it goes down this time of the year, it's people go out and maybe play tennis a little bit more. It's not that big. It's not that hot. It's not that cold. Goes down in the dead of winter. That's a big deal. People die. Same thing whenever you're looking at New York. If you can actually bring the entire power grid down for 48 hours during a blizzard, that could be catastrophic. Which, once again, we're getting into Die Hard 4.0 scenarios. The question is, how likely is that, right? How likely is that? And I know Rob M. Lee could come in and answer this, and maybe we should get Leslie on to kind of answer that question. I do know that when you talk to some of these people, they get very terrified about the things that they've seen that could have led to catastrophic loss of life. And even with BHIS, we've gained access to some power grids and things like that where we back off very quickly. But would it even matter? I mean, would that actually move the needle? Do you think if we had some type of catastrophic cyber attack where it wasn't just an attack against a water treatment plant in Florida or an irrigation system, if we had something that brought the power down to New York, let's say for 48 hours, do you think it would actually move the needle in cybersecurity?
But
they'd have to do GridX every year instead of every 2 years.
Yeah.
Here's the problem, though. What we would end up with is some sort of weird Water Patriot Act 3.0.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It would move a needle, not the one you want moved. But I did put a thing into the private chat, and we can put it into the links if we want this. Yeah, Ryan's pulling up now. This NPR story. Someone asked, or someone
that's state affiliated media, by the way. No.
Elon has entered chat. Whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But no, when you want to say how long can people go without power before core elements of society start to collapse, you need to watch this, or listen to this radio story, this documentary, because essentially it's about a hospital in New Orleans after Katrina, and doctors, after about 72 hours of not having power there, generators failing, they were essentially looking at who are we going to allow to die, and in some cases these doctors were being cited as actively killing people that they knew they would not be able to get out of the higher floors of the hospital. So it takes about 72 hours before the mental capacity in those environments starts to turn to just Lord of the Flies. And if you listen to that and you don't come out of that with that it's about 72 hours before people go, we're going to eat our young.
Wait, 72 hours? Have you ever driven in traffic? Just kidding. But yeah, no. I mean, I'm just joking. But yeah, I mean, I think it's, I don't know. It's impactful for sure. I think but it's like, that's how most things are, where it's like, it's all fine until it's not. And then it gets really real and we find out where how far down does the rabbit hole go of people acting horrible towards each other.
It becomes the YouTube comment section in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, let's that's too depressing. Let's transition. If you do get hacked and your grid gets taken down, you can blame North Korea.
Well,
that's lovely.
That's always an option.
How can I do
Always
this,
an option.
Corey?
I've been
Tell
blaming
me
them for
more.
not doing my taxes for years.
wow. How's it working out for you?
Well, the IRS just keeps sending me these letters that they're going to freeze my passport. I don't know. It's, but yeah. So the story is that 3CX blamed North Korea for their supply chain hack. This is
Of course
a
they would.
large recent compromise. Which
You're gonna go
3CX
big,
is like
right?
a kind of dark horse VoIP provider, I guess is how I describe them. Like,
Dark horse. So they're
not Cisco.
no, they make like a
Yeah.
they make like a kind of like a single image for you to kind of run your own VoIP on like your own server, like on prem, right? And they sell their software for that, kind of like a pre-built image, right?
Is this like the Gartner Magic Quadrant, but if you get hacked by North Korea, it means you're at least relevant in some industry?
Yes, you're relevant if you get
Like,
hacked.
can
by
they
North
put this?
Korea.
How can
Yeah.
they use this for marketing? Can they say like, we're so important, we got hacked by North Korea?
Yeah, and we defended them. That's
Good
get you like
We're on the map.
Good play. You should try that.
They attribute the activity to a cluster named UNC 4736, which I'm pretty sure is straight out of Halo.
the video game.
I think it was like an offshoot of Lazarus.
I was like, Corey, you
I
keep
believe.
talking like this, you're going to get banned from our Pyongyang.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I hear
I'm
they got
actually a moderator there. No, I'm just kidding.
I hear they got a fun park there.
So yeah, basically they deployed a backdoor. I mean, it's one of those things where like, I get why you'd want to announce this, but it's also kind of embarrassing.
Yeah. I mean, they just want to be like, it was nation state. So
That's true. I guess if it's nation state, it's
You
better
think-
than like 12-year-old. Yeah, that's true.
You think we could go to their website and view their clients to see if we could figure out who North Korea actually was going after?
Oh, let's do that right now.
Yeah,
Here we go.
Go do some OSINT.
3CX clients.
So Mandiant is the one, I guess, who.
So,
who,
John, there should be about 600,000 results for that because that's what they claim, and 12 million active daily users.
users.
Yeah, but their best clients are going to have their logos on the
Right.
website.
All right, here we
Come
go.
on, we got-
Tell me when I need to stop. We have Club Med, RBC.
Is that like Sky Mall? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, we're already. I think RBC, the bank.
you gotta use ones that have.
Oh, it's a bank. They've already been hacked by North Korea. That's not.
No, I think it was actually cryptocurrency people.
And then we have what is it? Achilles? I don't know where they are. Neiman College, Woodstock Trading, Mayfield School.
Woodstock Trading, the original was better.
The Ministry, Republic of Cyprus, Ministry of Health, Alliance Healthcare, NHS.
That's
So okay, but that's already been breached like 80 times.
You
So
just-
okay, what? So okay, here's the
Wait a
question:
minute.
what are they going after? Is it like they want the software backdoors so they can infect all
No,
these
no,
people, or is
they
it
got
specific?
Crypto companies.
They got into
It's crypto
PricewaterhouseCoopers.
mm-hmm.
That's a big one.
They already had many people
Well-
that worked there. It's North Korea.
For the sake of the lawyers here listening, PricewaterhouseCooper is a customer, and this company got hacked, but I don't think we have any evidence of.
We don't have any evidence that PricewaterhouseCoopers has
This
been-
whole show is for
Now
comedic
recorded
purposes
on video,
only.
Your Honor.
this whole entire show is nothing but opinions. Like you shouldn't listen to it
Absolutely.
at all,
Yeah.
ever.
We allegedly say this stuff.
Allegedly.
What? So what's the angle? You're North Korea. You're trying to get into 3CX. What? Why? Like, what is the? Give me the actual like cybersecurity. Give me the write up, Wade. You're gonna read it.
I already did it. I already
Okay.
did. This is old. It's
Give
old
me the
news.
write-up.
We're kind of going a little late. So pretty much they were just going after. Okay, North Korea. What do they always go after? Money, right? To fund all their stuff. So they're big on cryptocurrency. So they're going after any big cryptocurrency companies and trying to get a backdoor to then exfil out.
So they're looking for hot
exchange it
keys.
some way. Hot keys. They're looking for money. They're looking for anything they can exfiltrate quickly and fund their government because they don't have anything else to fund.
I will say this. One of the other interesting attacks that come out of VoIP hacks like that, especially because VoIP servers intrinsically have to have some sort of perimeter access, a lot of places are compromising them just to do robocalls. And I've dealt with incidents.
I was gonna say maybe they're just really sick of setting up PBX because it's so annoying.
That's exactly what it is.
So hard to set up PBX, you'd rather hack them.
No, they're also tired of getting the phone calls about your car.
Oh, yes.
They're like, I'm gonna take over all these servers and trace them back and figure out who is calling me about my vehicle's extended warranty.
Yeah, no, I had to deal with an incident. I can't say, unfortunately, who or why, but it was an incident where I want to say it was like $10,000 or $15,000 in long distance charges, like internationally, was charged up because they popped a box on the edge, and that particular VoIP server, it's not blacklisted. It's not something that anyone would have reported to the FCC and they're not worried about getting a do not call list kind of a fine because they're using somebody else's server. So yeah, it's a great way for criminals to do
Was
that.
it MITRE?
What's that?
Was it MITRE?
Was it MITRE?
No, I just
Wait.
because that's what's
Was
in
it
Cuckoo's
Walmart?
egg. That's how.
Was it Tiger Direct?
List all the
was-
start
it
at
was
A and list all the companies. American Airlines. Wait, no.
United.
Yeah. So okay, that's
Chuck E.
really
Cheese.
interesting. Yeah. It's interesting and it's funny at the same time. I love it, Ian.
So, can we? I don't know. I would like to get some packet captures from the back doors. If anyone has those, hit me up because I'd like to play with it because I like packet captures. Let's talk about the leak, the Discord leak.
God, is it really?
I don't know.
Oh, I was gonna say that we probably should. Yeah.
I don't.
So
I don't-
okay. Yeah.
I just, this has been really, really difficult for me to listen to for the past few days after the leak came out, right? We know it showed up on Discord in a very, very small, tight-knit group of friends. And one of them actually worked as an airman in the National Guard in Massachusetts, airman first class, 21 years old, and was basically trying to prove that he knew what he was talking about by taking
Clout
initially
chasing.
transcribing what was in the classified data. Then he got to the point where he was taking pictures and posting it out on Discord. And a lot of this stuff was like super duper sensitive, like NRO satellite and tracking telemetry, which is a big no-no. Like that's not supposed to be out there. You're not supposed to know what our means and capabilities are, especially whenever it comes to satellites and SIGINT and those types of things. And the thing I want to ask you all is, have you been watching the news on this and like the rage of people like, how could the United States government allow this to happen? Are they all incompetent? And I don't know, what's your all's take on this? Like, it's
My favorite thing that I've seen so far is one of the ways that they tracked him back. Now, I've got to take on what you said, but I got to get this out because one of the ways they figured it out was they were using social media to find them. They were using social media, and they spotted the granite countertop that the photo was taken on, and they spotted other photos on social media of them in their kitchen, and they said these countertops match, and I forget who it was, but they said so they used counterintelligence.
Bam, got him.
mic drop. That's
Yeah. So, okay, I will say as a taxpayer, I expect zero cybersecurity from the government, and I'm not particularly enraged because I expect it. We talked about everyone's experience working from the government's perspective is that there's, if your data gets leaked, there's not much you can do to prevent it. So I guess I think it's a great example of anytime someone tries to sell you this Patriot Act political thing of there's bad people that want to hurt the United States out there, and they're just cooking up new ways to put bombs. They're putting bombs in their underpants and their shoes, and you got to take off your shoes at the airport now. Meanwhile, it's just some kid being like, yeah, stupid kid doing stupid kid things. That's how it works. That's like,
it goes back to DLP, right? Like with DLP as a blue teamer, if somebody wants that data, they're gonna figure it out. If you
we block USB ports. You can't do it, dude.
Oh yeah, right. They'll find some weird website where they're able to upload it. Next thing you know, there goes like 20 gigs of data that you never knew.
There's
existed.
a lot more than
but,
DLP.
Yes, there is.
So, like,
but
so I mean, coming from this community and like knowing how like classified documents get handled, right? There's always someone in the way who could leak this information, right?
Every step.
There's always a possibility that this could happen, and you know, but the higher it goes up, the less people end up getting to touch it, right? Especially when you get into TS and then SCI, right? And it should be handled even by less people because you have to have a need to know, right? But these systems are separate from each other. Like they do stuff in the government that we would never do in a corporation because it's just an insane amount extra money to like put separate cables and make sure they're 5 feet apart and stuff like that, and like put the cables in special trays and stuff.
I can confirm that all the crazy crap that he's saying right now are actually in standards, like the JFAN. Great. So continue.
Anyways, I'm just saying that and that all goes away from a corporate side. We would never do this. Like no one's doing this. And if you saw this, you'd be like, oh my God, where do they get this budget from? Anywho, but I was just trying to say though is that there is a lot of people that can mess this up. There's always going to be someone. What kind of blows my mind about this particular example is that they didn't have, speaking of DLP, something to kind of like encrypt that data, which it doesn't really surprise me too much, but I would think hopefully at some level, like once you get to a certain level of information, that there should be kind of some kind of encryption, because what ended up happening is that this person had access to this network, right? And they were just indiscriminately looking for sensitive information in that network, right? So they were given access to it, but none of that was encrypted, right? So yeah.
Didn't he print it?
So
yeah,
all right,
that's something that they do.
I think that's the big thing, right? He printed it, walked
weird.
it out.
They ask for that, right? They will ask for
a background though. This particular individual was a computer specialist.
Yes.
So he had full administrative access to a ton of networking equipment and a ton of the different endpoints. Because look at it like this, just like Ralph said, they handle things very, very differently, like physically different monitors, physically different computer terminals, different Ethernet cables, coloring, all this stuff, right? But he was an administrator in this area. And that means he would have had access to absolutely everything and anything that the people who were working on this data would have had access to. That's how computers work.
How did he walk up the door with it though? That's what
there's people that are
this is like the cyber equivalent to like the Kent State shooting. It's like you give a bunch of people that don't know what they're doing a lot more power that they shouldn't have, and then you have like, oh, a 19-year-old kid made a bad decision. Why did you give him all this access? Like, I don't know. It's like you give him a gun, they're like bad things could happen too. Like, I don't know.
And James nailed it. He said you can't encrypt paper.
You're
Rumor
right.
was he was grabbing pre-printed documents. And this goes back to Sandy Berger, who was smuggling classified documents in his socks out of the National Archives because it made him look bad because of 9/11. Like, you're always going to have a way. Like, if you get somebody who is in a classified area, they're always going to be able to get classified data out. I am sorry. There is no way that you're going to reduce that risk to zero. They're going to print it out. They're going to put it in their socks. If you don't allow them to print, they're going to use USB drives. If they're not allowed to use USB drives, they're just going to memorize what the things are talking about, and they're just going to talk about it with their friends outside. Yeah. It's mind-blowing to me that a lot of the pundits that are talking about this are oversimplifying it to how dare somebody who's only 21 years old has access to data that's this sensitive. That tells me you have never had a clearance in your entire life, because there are so many people in the military that are 21, 22 years old who are absolute badasses doing amazing things for their country, and to unilaterally be like, well, they're too young, they shouldn't have access, is a really bad play.
No, you don't understand. Old people can't leak data.
And there are hundreds of thousands of old people can't leak data.
Ooh, there's another good one for that.
Thousands of people every day with clearances who go in and kick ass, do a great job, and they're not printing out shit and posting it on Discord. So this is more of a CI counterintelligence. And Ralph, I want to get your impression on this. This is more of a CI, like going through the poly, because he had to be full scope. For the data that he had. It was not a standard. Let me explain the difference. So a lot of the polys that you get are just counterintelligence poly, just a
You're
standard.
talking about polygraphs, by the way, in case anyone's not.
So it's literally they ask you, like, you spend like a few hours in a poly setup and getting polygraphed, and away you go. When you go full scope, that's a lot more in depth, and it's going to take usually a couple of days to go through a full scope poly. The level of classification that this particular individual had was in fact full scope poly level data, TS, SCI, NRO, SIGINT, like means and methods of collection. Like this is stuff that if you're going to get access to it, you're going to have a full scope poly in order to gain access to it. I think that that's where the failure is. Like however they did the full scope poly, whatever they were doing, whoever did that poly, I would love to see their notes, because I'm willing to bet that there were some red flags that were thrown. Ralph, what are your takes on like the poly? Like, I think it's all counterintelligence that failed here. It's not like we need more technical controls, we need more audit and compliance. The poly and like the granting of this clearance is where the
yeah, I mean, I don't know, that's a tough one to say, because it's obviously it's an in-depth process, and you know, like, could you have caught it, right? There's like, and like, because I've gone through the process multiple times, it's just interesting, right? The whole thing's very interesting. I still think I'm kind of more in like I agree with you 100%. There's no way we're ever going to stop this. There's always a possibility for a leak, right? In any way, shape, or form. And especially in the government, right? And they're going to tighten it up, right? And try to, you know, do the best they can to prevent this from happening, because it was kind of a smear on the face, right? But I don't know. I don't know if maybe I will say there are some things in the article, though, and when I say article, just like news articles that I read, like about some of his affinities and other stuff that, you know, kind of maybe would have hinted
some red flags,
just a little bit, possibly.
But
I'm just surprised.
It's a little close to home, some of the things, right?
Yeah.
Like,
so the other thing I will say about his age, right, is just I'm surprised that I'm not really surprised, because you know, a lot of people just get going in this. I am surprised that you know, he was only a reservist and had access to like all these systems that were like doing like more like active duty, like operational stuff, right? And so I'm just surprised how soon he got access to these things, right? And that goes to his age, right? You typically have to be in a little bit longer, right? To, you know, and that just, you only started at 18. So I'm really surprised at where he was inside of the military and why they kind of put him in that role in the first place, right? But it could just be demand, right? You just don't have enough people. So
there's a number of people. Takis has some great points on polys, and I want to address that. So Takis said polygraphs are a scam. If we can throw that up. And I want to talk about what polys do well. Polygraphs do not tell you if someone's lying. Like, you're absolutely 100% like with that. Polygraphs are an incredibly effective tool, and they're not bullshit. And I know that those two things seem in conflict with each other. Okay. So let's start with it on this, right? For polygraphs, they're not going to tell you if you're lying. They will tell you if you're nervous. They will tell you if somebody's uncomfortable, if some kind of subject is actually making them very, very, very mentally off-put. That is what a polygraph does. And they are incredibly effective at getting people to talk, because even if you go through and you're like, well, I can pass a poly and all this, you will have a butt pucker factor whenever they start literally hooking up like these little connectors all over your body and start asking questions. They are an amazing tool to get people to talk. It's merely a psyops tool. It doesn't tell you if it's ever like, you know, you're lying or not, but they do work at actually telling you that this person is very uncomfortable with this particular line of questioning. So they have utility in these specific areas, and they are actually one of the most effective tools that we have in the United States government. As I said, there are literally hundreds of thousands of people that have clearances. And I can tell you as an ISO that worked in this space for a long time, information system security officer, these things work at identifying people who have things like financial troubles, marital troubles, things like that, that may be precursors to eventual problems. And that doesn't mean the government kicks people out if you get a gambling addiction or an alcohol addiction, or you're going through a divorce with your wife. What they're trying to identify is they're trying to identify if there's things that you're hiding. And polygraphs work great for that. So understand where polys fit in the grand scheme of things in our counterintelligence arsenal. They are not there to detect if somebody's lying. They are there to make you really, really uncomfortable detect that you're really, really uncomfortable and get you to start having conversations.
I want to hit.
Ralph, go ahead.
I was going to hit just one little thing. Austin Jones said 18-year-olds can get TSSCI clearances. Absolutely. Right.
Absolutely.
You don't need to like have a certain time. I know I was talking about like being in, but just because you have a clearance does not mean you have a need to know that specific piece of information, right? Hold on to that. Hold on to that, because you don't, just because you have this clearance, right? Everyone just assumes that you, and granted, maybe he had access to this because it was part of his job function and role, right? But just having that clearance does not mean that you can walk up to any of these TSS SCI stations and just start doing whatever you want, right?
Well,
whoever does
reports. So Ralph, did you actually see some of the pictures of the reports and what they were?
No, I didn't look at them. No,
well,
and that
I think what they were is, all right. So there's these PowerPoint briefings that go out to commanders all over the United States, right, and around the world, but they're U.S. commanders, and predominantly these briefs are for U.S. commanders. And all the different bases and all these different units, you have commanders, base commanders at different places, and they get briefings as far as what is going on from a geopolitical perspective in a variety of different locations in a variety of different areas. I'm not 100% certain, but these look like it came from those briefings. So I don't know if the Massachusetts Air National Guard has a commander who is receiving those briefings. And part of the reason why they give these briefings kind of far and wide is because they want these commanders to be ready. So whenever something does happen, they understand the context around what's actually going on. So whenever we're talking about, well, why did he have access to it? My guess is it was the commander of the specific group that he was a part of had access to that. He was the IT person who was making sure that that person had access to that data, had full admin access to the entire network, had full admin access to the computer, and that's how they did it. That's my theory. Just looking at like some of the screenshots, there was a couple of them. As soon as I saw them, like, oh, those are daily commander briefings. Yeah. As soon as I saw those. So if people are always like, well, why did he have this? I want you to understand like why you have something that's TSSCI that may be disseminated across a wide variety of different people. It's specifically there so that they understand from a geopolitical perspective what is going on, because at some point in the future, their job being successful may be dependent on them having the context of what they're supposed to do.
So what do you think Discord's poker face was when they found out that they had it on their
server?
My
God.
So I was going to say, whoever's setting up the red team for the U.S. military, I wouldn't use Discord. Just as a heads up, if you're going to use that as a potential threat actor emulation technique to try to exfil, I wouldn't go with it.
Yeah, that's a bad one.
They're going to detect it, and then you're going to lose your job.
I want to take something back here, because as we've heard the people like chattering about like, how could this possibly have happened? Do we need more controls? I got news for a lot of these folks. What played out worked exactly as designed and effectively. In the couple days after this hit, they immediately found the individual. They were able to contain them, etc. Most security controls around this stuff is based like you have to trust somebody at some point.
At some point,
John said they will get the data out. So the question is what have you put in place to make sure that you can locate them? In the case of Reality Winner, because that was mentioned a few times in the chat, what actually got them was that HP printers encode into the actual laser print. I forget what it's called. It's a dot sequence, constellation sequence, or something like that. There's these little dots in it that they can tell where it's been printed from. And this is an anti-counterfeiting thing. So when really high-end printers came out, the U.S. Secret Service said, we need to be able to know if someone prints dollars, where it comes from. When they sent it to The Guardian, it was a PDF scanned exactly in, and they were able to see, hey, HP, where'd that printer come from? And I can imagine how the conversation went, because it's like the NSA or the CIA or whoever calling. It's like, the print came from inside the building, because they were actually it came from this serial number in your office,
and they can track it back, and they can find exactly what floor, who had access, where that printer was.
Exactly. So those types of things exist, and these types of things are going to happen because you have to trust people. The answer to the question is, can you find them when the bad thing happens, know the scope of what was released, and then contain it? And from what I'm seeing, that happened.
And taking it one step further, you see this on the news, and it was on every single news station at the exact same time. I think it's falling off fairly quickly right now, but it was on CNN, Fox, it was on MSNBC, on CBS, it was on all of these different news platforms, front page on Drudge, front page on Huffington Post, front page everywhere. And that's actually by design as well. And the reason why is, just as Ian said, the system played out the way it should. They got this person quickly. They publicly have perp walked this person. And I want you all to know that's intentional, because it's letting everyone else who has a clearance know that they will find you. And that is absolutely part of all of this. Because, you know, the level of danger associated with this classified information, I can speak to some of it is like, holy crap, that should not be out anywhere. But the reason why it's getting blown up in the media as much as it is I honestly believe that this is also part of a good PSYOPs campaign against people who have clearances, not necessarily trying to hurt them or break into their lives, but it is absolutely a reminder. So whenever you have Chelsea Manning going to prison, that is an absolute reminder. When you have Reality Winner going to prison, that is absolutely a reminder. And when you get your clearance, they do bring up the stories of these people and what happened to them as well.
They updated their address to Leavenworth.
They updated their address. So,
All right, who has a non-depressing note to end the show?
hey, Montana banned TikTok while I was there.
Wait,
That was pretty
really?
cool.
Yeah.
No,
Wow.
really.
Just TikTok, not
Just
any
Just
other
TikTok.
apps?
Yep.
Oh yeah, just TikTok.
I would like
Also,
that.
in
How
other-
exactly do you do this? Like, honestly,
so
like
in-
if you're the admin that's like, okay, they said they got to ban TikTok, like,
Oh, everyone turn off the
Okay.
VPN.
so explain how. Like,
completely
how?
unrelated news. The legislators in Montana clearly don't know how the internet works.
Yes. Yes.
Wait, what? Montana is the tech capital of the United States. You take that back.
You take that back.
Oh my
You
god.
hold your
I
tongue.
tweeted this out when this story broke, and two things came to mind immediately. This is why I wanted to talk about this on the chat. One, everyone already nailed the first part, which is you don't know how the internet works if you think you're going to block this. But really, the two things that I think are the most fascinating about this is, good job, legislators. You just made TikTok the coolest app amongst teenagers and rebellious folks in Montana.
Prohibition works. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Hey.
Exactly. And two, because of that, holy crap, if you thought the F-12 hackers in Missouri were bad, you wait till a bunch of preteens can't get TikTok.
A bunch of cowboys in Montana with cowboy keyboards.
Yeah.
So if you're a preteen in Utah or anyone under 18, you are not allowed to use social media at all of any form without your parents' consent.
Oh my god.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
that's
sure
right.
they always verify the consent, right? Yeah. Mom
Yes,
said
you
I
have to
could.
submit
Yeah,
IDs.
yeah.
They're
You
making
have to
this-
submit. Wait, do you
ID.
actually have to submit
Yeah.
a photo ID?
Yes, that's what they're doing.
Not real hard to
Starting it
fake
next
that.
year sometime. So we'll see
Yeah.
how
Oh,
that
okay.
works.
So
They
this
can
is
just
a
have a
future
big
thing.
Database
So, okay.
of everyone who's got thoughts.
The obvious upshot of this is, so let's all send our photo IDs to all the social media companies. Great idea.
What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing.
Great idea, because obviously the government isn't going to pay to maintain this database, and if they did, it'd be a Microsoft Access database, and would run out of space in like 2 weeks.
So
And
how long
then-
does I was going to say, how long does this hold? How long until we actually do start getting a fractured internet? Like, not necessarily, like maybe it is Utah, maybe it is Montana, maybe it is Singapore. How long until we start getting a severely fractured internet where if you're in South Dakota, you got certain apps you can't get in Kentucky, and in New York, they got everything. I mean, what,
Okay, my take is that in the U.S. specifically, the borders are way too porous, and the funding is not there. It's just never going to happen. There is no, like, when the government does the calculation of how much it's going to cost to ban TikTok, the voters are going to flip, period. Like, this is going to go insane, because it's going to be like, oh, how much does it cost to ban TikTok? Well, now we need all of our own cell towers, because if someone lives near the border and they catch a cell tower from another state, they could get TikTok, or whatever what's
technology is there, isn't it?
the other funny thing,
would it-
I don't know.
Netflix. If you try to log into Netflix outside of the United States, let's not use Netflix because you can go through a VPN and blow through Netflix, not a problem.
Netflix is pretty good sometimes.
But YouTube, if you try to go through a VPN, YouTube absolutely nails your geolocation. Right?
Well, so here's the thing. This would require the entity to want to implement this for Montana. That's not going to happen. They're going to look at the numbers and they're going to say there's 15 kids in Montana. Yep. Cut it off. Like they're not going to bother like doing geolocation analysis for Montana and then making sure those users are banned or they have a photo ID. They're just going to be like, Montana, sucks to be you. We're here in California where we have 50 million users or whatever. Like,
I'd love to see how the law is.
What if you enforced it via the IP providers, the telecommunications?
But you can't. The internet is so porous. Dude, China has all the funding in the world and they can't do it.
But you could go through VPN, but if they just told all the telecoms in their area, like, hey, any traffic routed to this IP space. Drop.
Again, the telecom's going to say, okay, that's cool. This will take 80,000 man hours to implement. Who's going to pay? That's exactly what, like, I don't know. I don't see it actually playing out.
You have a lot of telco providers like, what is it, West Yellowstone, where they're actually in like 2 states.
Oh, they're all in 2 states. And like, what about Cell? Like, you live in the.
Brian Godfrey just said Montanan cowboys using Starlink for TikTok.
Yeah, Starlink. Good luck. It's just so silly for Montana to think it's totally a political thing that has no teeth. It's like, I don't know. It's like California passing a thing that says turtles and plastic are bad, or like it's just like I don't know. Like we're gonna ban. California does it like every 5 years. They're like, we're banning EVs, and then they just slowly roll it back, like and no one notices. They just keep saying they're doing it.
In the new version of Cops, they're gonna bust in a house and be like, "You're on TikTok. Get down. Get down.
Get down now."
Hold on. Is he flossing?
This is lasting longer than 3 minutes.
No,
this
it's not TikTok. It's not TikTok. It's Montana Talk. It's
Montana Talk. This one's approved. This month. On the couch.
All right, everybody. That's it. We got to wrap this up. That's a great way to end it. Hey, this is like the first show I've been on in a long time that we ended on a positive, happy note.
We did.
That's
making fun of Montana.
Thank you, Montana. Thank you.
Did it.
Our one viewer from Montana is so mad right now.
All right. Later, everybody.
All right.
Maybe.
Or not.